Welcome, and thank you for standing by. At this time, all participants' lines will be on a listen-only mode until the question-and-answer session. At that time, please press star, followed by the number 1. Unmute your line, record your name clearly as prompted to be introduced. Today's call is being recorded, and if you have any objections, you may disconnect. I'd now like to introduce John Chang. Sir, you may begin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is John Chan, and I have been asked to speak to you about federal certification process. Next slide. On our agenda today, I will discuss federal certification history, regulations, and requirements. I will also provide an overview of the Federal Certification Guide and preparing for Phase 1 certification review, which includes certification questionnaire, financial distribution test stack, requesting federal certification, submitting certification questionnaires, and financial distribution test stack documentation, laying the groundwork for Phase 1 certification review success. Greg has a family emergency today. Tennyson will cover Part 2 of the webinar, Phase 1 and 2, on-site certification review. Next slide. Since 1981, OCSE has provided funding for federal financial participation for STIC system development nationwide. Over the 40 years, we have provided billions of dollars for system development projects and provided oversight and technical assistance to meet the needs of the child support programs. The FSA 88 and the parole laws mandated all STIC systems be certified. Even before these laws, we were conducting certification reviews. For example, my first STIC system certification review was in the spring of 1991. We certified a Wasserman STIC as meeting the system requirements of the 1984 amendments to the Social Security Act. The difference is FSA 88 and parole mandated certification. However, both of these laws did more than just required certification. They provided many child support tools that we use today to facilitate case processing and increase collections. Examples are Federal Case Registry, National Directory of New Hires, multi-STIC financial institution data match, and passport denial. Before FSA 88 and parole certifications, there were hundreds of STIC systems nationwide. So, for example, a big STIC can contain several systems, all operating independently of each other. Certification consolidated these systems into one comprehensive and STIC-wide system, improving the STIC's child support program management, operations, performance, and increased the collections. As a result of FSA 88 and parole certifications, we currently have 54 comprehensive and STIC-wide systems nationwide. Looking back, it was a lot of hard work for both federal and STIC staff because FSA 88 and parole program and certification requirements were new to everyone. We responded to hundreds of written questions regarding the program and functional requirements and provided technical assistance on implementing these requirements to the STIC systems. We're able to achieve this important work because of federal and state partnerships. We hope to continue this partnership using modern technologies to develop the next generation systems that reflect the needs of your child support programs. Next slide. Next slide. CFR 307.25 gives OCSE authority to reveal and certify STIC systems. It also gives OCSE authority to reveal and inspect the STIC systems planning, design, development, installation, enhancement, and operations. Regulations 307.10 and 307.11 relate to the FSA 88 and parole functional requirements, and Regulation 307.15 relate to the advanced planning document requirements. All the functional requirements are addressed in the Federal Certification Guide entitled Automated System for Child Support Enforcement, a Guide for STIC, also known as the Guide. Next slide. Next slide. No, can you go back one? Federal certification requirements. Yes, thank you. According to the Federal Certification Guide, the STIC system must be comprehensive and STIC-wide to be certified. The definition in this slide came from the guide. The comprehensive definition reads, a comprehensive system performs all functional requirements within legislative timeframes specified in federal child support regulations and guidelines. The second part of the definition reads, additionally, a comprehensive system electronically interfaces with other agencies and organizations, systems, federal, state, tribal, international, and private, to improve program management and operations. Please note, all functional requirements, program timeframes, and interfaces identified in this definition are in the guide. Therefore, the STIC system must meet all requirements in the guide to be certified as a comprehensive system. The STIC-wide definition reads, a STIC-wide system effectively and efficiently encompasses all political subdivisions and other organizations that provide child support related services. Therefore, all child support offices, political subdivision, for example, local governments such as counties, cities, and towns, and organizations, for example, cooperative arrangements with the district attorney and prosecuting attorney's office must use the comprehensive and statewide system to perform all child support services to be certified as a statewide system. Next slide. This is the certification guide You can find the guide on the OCSE website. The guide is a framework to develop the STIC system. Next slide. Who should use this guide? The STIC Child Support Technical, Policy, and Program Operations staff and their contractors should use the guide to develop the STIC system. Federal OCSE staff should use the guide to provide technical assistance and certification. Again, the guide is a framework to develop the STIC systems. Therefore, the guide should be reviewed and incorporated where appropriate in the STIC's functional system requirements and system design documents, and used it throughout the system development life cycle. Next slide. The guide is organized into two parts, which encompass general requirements, definition terminologies, and 10 functional areas with their related system requirements. The functional objectives are case initiation, locate, establishment, case management, enforcement, financial management, reporting, security and privacy, customer service, new technologies. Our primary focus today is Appendix A, guidance in preparing for certification reviews. Next slide. In this slide and the following two slides, I want to go over the guide's layout. The guide starts with a requirement description. A1 objective. The system must accept, maintain, and process information from non-4A services. The next section provides the federal statutory and regulatory authorities that support the Objective A1 certification requirement. Section 4546B of the Social Security Act, Section 454AE of the Act, 45 CFR 302.33A1I, 45 303.2, and 45 CFR 307.10B14. The next section provides specific STIC system requirements. A. Upon receipt of an application for child support services, the system must maintain 1. The date the application was requested. 2. The date the application program information describing services and fees, rights and responsibility, cost recovery, and distribution policy was sent to the applicant. And 3. The date the signed applications and fee were received. As you can see from this example, the certification guide mirrors the federal program requirements. Next slide. A second example of the guide. Again, the guide starts with a requirement description, A2 objective. The system must automatically accept and process referral from the STIC's 4A 10 of existing needy families, 10 of agency. This is the 4A 4D interface. The next section provides the federal statutory and regulatory authority that support the Objective A2 certification requirement. Section 454A(e) of the Act, 45 CFR 235.70, 45 CFR 303.2, 45 CFR 307.10B9 and 14, 45 CFR 11F3. The next section provides specific stick system requirements. A. The system must automatically accept automated referrals from the 4-H agency. I'm going to skip the note. I'll jump right into B. Requirement B, the system must automatically record in the automated case record the date the referral is received. C, program information. Sorry about that. C, program information describing services and fees, rights and responsibilities, and cost recovery and distribution policies must be provided for a recipient the state the information is provided recorded in the comprehensive chronological case history. D. Minimum data element, the system must accept and process the following referral information: custodial's parent, name, address, social security number, 4 identification number, etc. That's a bunch of elements if you look at this objective. This is just some examples. Again, as you can see from this example, the certification guide mirrors the federal program requirements. Next slide. In this last example, I want to point out the required interfaces identified in the comprehensive definition, the comprehensive certification definition on page 5 under Objective B1 and throughout the guide. So that's an overview of the layout of the guide. Next slide, please. In this slide and the following 3 slides, I want to go over the process of preparing for certification. Certification questionnaire. At least 6 months prior to start of certification, read and follow the instruction Appendix A of the guide. Guidance in preparing for certification reviews. This Appendix C is arranged in sequential order to provide a step-by-step of the certification process. Contact your DSTS Federal Analyst for specific guidance to answer questions related to the requirements in the certification guide and to provide sample where applicable and available. You again work on the certification questionnaire. To prepare the questionnaire, the project must duplicate Section 3 of the guide. Provide a written response to each certification requirement describing how the new statewide system meets that requirement. We highly recommend including screenshots showing where data is displayed is highly recommended. Do not use personally identifiable information such as client name and address and SSNs. Next slide. Here is a sample of a certification questionnaire. The first section, bolded, shows the certification requirements from the guide. The second section provides a written response to each certification requirement, describing how the new system meets that requirement and includes a screenshot. Next slide. At least 6 months prior to start of certification, request a copy of the financial distribution test deck from your DSTS federal analyst. Read and follow the instruction in running the financial distribution test deck. Contact your DSTS federal analyst for specific guidance to answer questions related to the requirement in the distribution test deck and to provide samples where applicable and available. Begin running the distribution test deck. The test deck consists of several scenarios that determine if the child support system correctly performs parole distribution requirements and the definition and the Deficit Reduction Act of 2005 mandatory assignment rules. Next slide. Two months prior to the start of certification, requesting for federal certification and submitting documentation. Submit a cover letter to the OCSE Commissioner stating the system is implemented statewide and ready for federal review, including the certification questionnaire and financial distribution test deck documentation. Your federal DSTS analyst will work with the state to set up dates and prepare an agenda for the review. Laying the groundwork for Phase 1 certification review success. Begin preparing for the federal review by identifying cases in your system that best demonstrates compliance with each of the certification guide objectives. Identify state staff who will demonstrate the system to the federal certification team during their on-site review of the system. Most states have broken up this responsibility functionally: case initiation, locate, establishment, etc. Many states have found it useful to have walkthroughs prior to the federal review. You can find all the information regarding the certification process in Appendix A of the guide. The Appendix is arranged in sequential order to provide a step-by-step of the certification process. The keys to a successful certification review are following the instructions in Appendix A of the guide and working closely with your assigned federal analyst. That's the end of my presentation. Next, Anderson will go over Phase 1 and 2 on-site certification reviews. We will take questions at the end. Next slide.
Thank you, John. Hi, my name is Kenneth Naveda with the I am currently a contractor who supports DSTS for various states. So again, after a successful statewide rollout, decommissioning the legacy system, and the new system is the only statewide child support enforcement system, it is time to request certification. This is to ensure that the state did not lose any certified PRORA and SSA 88 functionality during the modernization. For the review, as John mentioned, states should send an official letter to OCSE requesting an on-site visit. OCSE will respond with an acknowledgement letter detailing next steps towards finalizing a time frame and an agenda for the on-site visit. Next slide, please. The federal review team consists of DSTS analysts who is assigned to the state and is the team lead. Also, one or two DSTS contract staff will be part of the review team. Currently, Zolan Tech is our technical support vendor acting as backup DSTS analyst. Additionally, DSTS federal staff may attend based on experience or needs. The OCSE regional program analyst will also be invited and is always welcome to be part of the federal review team. And just one note, for larger states, 2 separate teams have been used in the past, with assignments of 1 DSTS lead and 2 contract staff per person. Florida comes to mind, where for the level 2 site visits, DSTS used 2 teams. One team reviewed Florida's East Coast sites, while the other team reviewed Florida's West Coast sites. Next slide, please. On-site certification reviews are conducted in 2 levels. Level 1, the functional review, and Level 2, the follow-up review and visits to the local offices. Both reviews normally take 3 to 5 days to conduct. The new child support system is only certified when both reviews have been conducted and all objectives have been satisfied. Next slide, please. For the Level 1 on-site review, state staff must demonstrate each objective and sub-objective identified in the ACF certification guide in a live production environment. Demonstrations are done sequentially and as normal child support case flows, as indicated in slide 8, what John mentioned. This includes case initiation, locate, establishment, and so on. However, it doesn't have to happen in that order. The federal team can deviate based on the state's preference or staff availability. Demonstration must be conducted by state staff. The development vendor may be present, but not active participants. The key is knowledge transfer and to validate if adequate training was provided to the state. In addition to specific functionality required, OCSE also observes caseworker alerts, notifications, and reminders tied to the proactive tracking of timeframes and due dates for action items. Is all activities being recorded in the case journal? Is there sufficient protection of family violence data? The use of approved guidelines calculator and capturing any amounts of deviation. Supervisory escalation reports, and evidence of the biannual security review being conducted, just to name a few things. The state must also use the production environment with actual live cases. In rare cases, when the state cannot demonstrate an objective on the production environment, a test environment may be used with the approval from the federal review team. During the review, the federal team might collect documents and forms generated by the system to verify that the system is doing its job correctly. Either on the last day or the following week of the Level 1 review, OCSE will conduct an exit conference to the state to provide high-level state staff with the preliminary findings. In many cases, OCSE will bring back the initial findings back to central office and brief OCSE management prior to having an exit conference call. Next slide, please. Upon returning to the central office, the review team will develop a draft report. The draft report is an exception-based report, citing only functions that did not meet or marginally meet federal certification requirements. The draft report will include two categories of findings: certification findings, which is functionality that did not meet the requirements under a specific objective in the certification guide, which is required for certification, and management findings, which identifies functionality that marginally meets the requirements, and there's room for improvement. Next slide, please. The Level 1 certification report will be marked draft and will be sent to the state by email. The draft report will include an open text area for the state to respond. After the state provides the response, the review team will either close the finding based on the response from the state or indicate that OCSE will follow up on the Level 2 review to revisit the issue to determine whether the correction was made for the finding to be closed. Findings will be updated based on the state's written responses with a status of either open or closed. Findings will only be deleted if they are a mistake or fact. Monthly calls will also be conducted to monitor the state's progress in mitigation of the findings prior to the Level 2 on-site review. Only when the state indicates all certification findings are corrected, OCSE will schedule and conduct the Level 2 review. Next slide, please. To begin the Level 2 review, we normally meet at the state program office or development site to verify all certification findings have been resolved and close the findings. Local office visits will fill the remainder of the week. Each site visit will last between 1 to 2 hours, and OCSE will visit 2 to 3 sites per day. In total, Level 2 site visits will last between 2 to 5 days. This includes drive time from one site to another, lunch, and security protocols for the entry into facilities, particularly their SDU and local county offices. Next slide, please. In addition to the local child support offices, the review team may be interested in visiting the local courts to meet with state attorneys and the legal division staff to understand the prosecution of cases involving judicial action, scheduling hearings, and preparing legal documentation with the family courts on behalf of child support enforcement. And when available, OCSE will visit the SDU, data center, and the disaster recovery site. We are aware of outsourcing services such as the SDU, data, and disaster recovery centers that are not within driving distance. The federal review team will work with the state to develop an itinerary for the local site visits in advance of arrival as part of the Level 2 agenda. Normally, OCSE visits small, medium, and in some cases more political large counties. The SDU review should be scheduled in the morning for the OCSE team to see the entire processing of payments, from mailroom to batch processing to posting. Next slide, please. In addition to the federal team, at least one state personnel and county office manager should attend. The review team should be given a short overview describing the county's organization, whether it's functional groups, including intake, locate, financials, or caseworkers working cases from intake to case closures. County managers should also describe the responsibilities between workers, creating a case and working financials. This is to ensure separations of duties are in place and no opportunity exists for fraud or misuse. The federal team would also like to observe functionality in all core child support functional areas. For example, referrals from partner agencies, review and acceptance of federal locate information, SESNet processing, review and adjustment, FIDM, and statistical and performance reporting. For a full list of specific functions, please see Appendix A of the Federal Certification Guide. Next slide, please. The team will also observe caseworkers working on actual cases. If the state cannot find any case to demonstrate an objective or scenario, the caseworker may be asked to walk through on how they would perform the function. Please note, the federal team will be reviewing the system, not the caseworker, so please encourage the caseworker to relax. The main objective of the local office review is to observe the system in use at the local level, not to re-verify the functionality of the child support system, which was already reviewed during the Level 1 review. Finally, an exit conference will be conducted, either on the last day or early the following next week, to provide the state with any preliminary findings and review any action items. Next slide, please. Again, the review team will return to the central office and review any findings, notes, performance reports, or any other artifacts. We will revise the status of the existing findings based upon the Level 2 review. If needed, we will add any new findings and recommendations from the Level 2 visit. If necessary, we will monitor the state's progress in mitigating any open findings, continue to update the status of each finding. It is possible we will conduct follow-up reviews, either back on site or virtually. This is to verify any open findings gets closed before finalizing the report. Remember, the system is not fully certified until both levels are complete and all certification findings have been closed. Next slide, please. When all objectives are satisfied, the state will receive a letter from the OCSE commissioner stating that the state has passed federal certification. Attached to the cover letter will be a copy of the final certification report, with all certification findings reflect closed status. The letter and report will also be CC'd to the regional program manager. There may be open management findings. If so, we encourage the states to accept the recommendation and address the issues identified. At this point, the state is available for a transfer or as part of a hybrid solution for any other states or territories to use. There are no actions to be taking no actions to resolve certification findings and not receiving certification can result in the denial of FFP and disapproval of the state's APD. Next slide, please. One final note. During the pandemic, OCSE successfully performed a virtual Level 1 certification of the Massachusetts Comet HD system. Instead of the usual 5-day review, the review was conducted 2 to 3 days per week for 3 weeks. This concludes the presentation. Operator, please open up the line for any questions. When asking questions, please state your name, your state, and the slide number with the questions you have. Thank you.
And thank you. At this time, to ask a question from the phone line, you may press star followed by the number 1, unmute your line, and record your name clearly as prompted. Again, with questions from the phone line, please press star followed by the number 1. Once again, with questions on the phone line, you may press star followed by the number 1. And at this moment, I'm seeing no questions. One moment. One just came in. Craig Bersham, your line's open. You may ask your question.
Hi. A lot of us are looking at new systems produced by vendors, and one of the questions I have, many of the pieces are modular, and has OCSE considered taking a financial module and putting some data behind it and running the test deck without actually putting the whole system in place?
I'll try to answer that one. To answer your question, for me, this question never came up before. I would say, like anything else, we will consider it, meaning that we'll listen to what you have, what you're thinking about doing, and consider it.
Thank you.
And thank you. At this time, for further questions, press star followed by the number 1. I'm showing no questions on the phone line at this time.
This is Michelle. I'm showing no questions in the chat.
And as another reminder, for questions on the phone line, press star followed by 1. 1 moment, please. Shannon Abernathy, your line's open. You may ask your question.
Good afternoon. I have a question regarding, has there been any thought about the certification process kind of beginning from the start of DDI through implementation rather than doing it all at the end? Meaning, is there any thought to or possibility of kind of going through and passing some of those certification items as the development is continuing?
I don't think that's feasible, and I'm going to explain to you why. When you build these systems, you run through various types of tests, system tests, UAT, pilot, and so forth. All these tests allow you to identify bugs. And when you roll out the system, we want the system to roll out statewide. When you roll out the system statewide, for a big state, you have over 1,000 users now using the system. And that's where they test this. That's when these 1,000 users able to identify bugs and missing requirements, so forth. I do not recommend that we do this certification piecemeal for these reasons.
Yeah, this is Greg Jordan. I just wanted to add a little to what John said. We have considered IBMD play a part in some of the certification exercises throughout the design, development, and implementation of the system. But at the end of the rollout, just like John mentioned, we'd like to have a successful system implemented and used across the state. That's where certification will be completed.
Yeah. I'd like to add a little bit more to it. You want to roll out the system statewide, and you want to let the system stabilize. And based on my research, it takes 3 months. You're not going to have major issue. It takes 3 months to stabilize the system, meaning that you're not going to make major changes to it. You're just going to fix all the bugs that was identified and missing requirements and so forth. So I would, again, implement it statewide, wait till the system stabilize, and the system generally takes 3 to 9 months to stabilize, and then request for certification.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, this is Michelle. I have 2 questions in the Q&A, and the first question is, due to the current pandemic situation, that made some states move to 90% virtual operation, how do you anticipate the level 1 and level 2 in-person review process change? That's the first question.
We've conducted the level 1 virtually, but level 2, the visits to the county, in the centers and like that, it's going to be a little tricky. We'll have to work to devise some kind of a plan for that. Functional review, we're at the state program office, we're right there, we're watching the demonstrations, but to visit the counties, that's going to be a tough one, but depending on how long we're in the pandemic.
Question 2, has OCSE thought about its approach to a certification review at a local office if caseworkers are teleworking? Is the location important, or could a teleworker simply come to the office one day for purpose of demonstrating the system? Let me know if you need me to repeat it.
Well, this is great. See, we won't be in a pandemic much longer, but there's no emergency situations involving for the CSES. So we can hold off on the level 2 as long as we can. But like I said, that's going to be challenging to be able to even visit the state offices and the county offices. So if we get there, which I doubt with travel restrictions, it's still going to be even tough for us to get there. So for a caseworker to get in, it's also going to be pretty challenging. So we have to have internal discussions regarding how we're going to approach a level 2 local site visit. So that's going to be a tough call.
Okay, there was a clarification, but I'm thinking of teleworking post-pandemic.
I could take that one. Like I said earlier in my presentation, the certification guide mirrors the federal program requirements. I can't stress that enough. So when I do a review, phase 1, going to functionality of the system, the state tend to have their systems people, and they also, the people who demonstrate the system comes from the program. And when we go through the guide, we go through the program requirement, functional requirement, and a lot of times we have policy questions. So we like to do this on site, and we like to have all these people in the same room. It's just so much more productive to have all these expertise in the same room. And then to answer the phase 2 certification review on site to the local offices. Again, we need to be on site to really see the system. To really, when we go on site, they take a case and they walk us through the entire process. And from one case manager to the next case manager and so forth. You just can't do that having, case managers come to the central office to show us. It's just not the same. We need to ensure everybody in those local offices are using the comprehensive and statewide system. So we need to be on site for phase 2.
This is Michelle. I have a question in the chat. What state was the virtual certification conducted with?
That would be Massachusetts.
At this time, I do not see any more questions in the chat or the Q&A.
And as another reminder, if there's questions on the phone line, to please press star followed by 1. And I'm showing no questions on the phone line at this time. Again, I'm showing no further questions on the phone line. I'll go ahead and turn it back over to the speakers for any closing remarks.
This is John Chang. I just want to have any questions. My presentation today was just to give you an overview of the certification guide. If you have any question regarding any of the requirements in the certification guide, please reach out to your assigned federal analyst. And in closing, I just want to say thank you so much for spending time with us today. And have a great day. Thank you.
And thank you. This does conclude today's conference. You may disconnect your lines. Thank you for your participation.